Welcome back to Going the Distance Live. After a few month hiatus, the podcast is back. I said in late 2019 that I had a plan to expand the podcast and have on more guests. My goal is to highlight some people that I just find truly incredible. My first guest is Kate Tierney. Kate is a fellow vasculitis patient that has beat all the odds to still be alive with us today. Kate has EGPA, which is known as Eosinophilic Granulomatosis with Polyangiitis. It's one of the rarest forms of vasculitis that there is, and sort of a cousin to the GPA that I have. Just like vasculitis, every vasculitis is very different, even though they're all under the same umbrella. We go into a lot of that in the podcast. But Kate was diagnosed at age 16, and she'll actually be celebrating her, I don't know that celebrate is the right word, but she'll be celebrating her 20th anniversary of diagnosis here in April. We had plenty to talk about in the roughly 2 hours that the podcast lasted. Easily could have gone for another 2. So I look forward to having her back at some point in time. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend, Kate Tierney. I do have to give a quick shout out to my younger brother, Tyler, for making the awesome new intro music to the podcast. Tyler is an incredibly talented musician, and I'm excited to have him part of this project. Without further ado, Going the Distance Live. All right, so we have here today with us Kate Tierney, and Kate's been one of my dear friends, I would say, for the last 3 years. I met her at the International Symposium, Vasculitis Symposium in 2017, and I will say from my end, she's been somebody that's been incredibly inspiring, and I want to share her journey as a patient and as a fellow kind of vasculitis ambassador. We'll use the word young adult loosely, especially since none of us could figure out how to work technology recently. We're definitely maybe aging out of the young adult or kids group. So, Kate, thank you for doing this today.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for having me. What you've done with the Victory Over Vasculitis campaign, and just, I'm very inspired by you and your ability to be so honest and forthcoming about everything that you deal with. And, I've been doing this for so long. You were diagnosed in 2008 and me in 2000. So we both didn't meet people. Mine was 8 years and yours was 9, really, until you came to the one in Chicago. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. I talk to so many, and you have too, I know, but I talk to so many parents, especially of kids that get diagnosed, and they're kind of like pushing them to interact with us cool kids. And most of them obviously don't want to if they don't seek it out on their own. And I mean, I was kind of that way myself. I didn't really talk about it for a very, very long time. It wasn't that I avoided it at times, but if people asked me direct questions about it, I would answer it, but it wasn't something that I brought up with a lot of people. I know yours is a bit different. So kind of, I guess, take everybody, because your journey is very, very long.
Yes, we can cut it into pieces and skip some parts at this point.
Well, yeah. I think everybody's got a lot of time on their hands right now, so we can get into the nitty gritty of all of it. Okay. Because it's not like anybody's going anywhere. If you're listening to this far into the future, everybody's kind of in the middle of a lockdown over the coronavirus stuff, and everybody's got a lot of time on their hands. So if you want to kind of just take us, and I hate like saying this, but just kind of like take us back to the beginning, and then your journey up to kind of like meeting other patients and then kind of getting involved with the foundation. And these support we'll call them support groups for lack of a better word, or clubs or whatever you want to say. Like, because so many of us have done the like suffer in silence thing. And the journey to kind of like opening up is very tough for a lot of us.
It took me a while. And then, like, so I was diagnosed with asthma at 6. And then like I spent my first full night in the hospital at 9. And they didn't really know what it was, but I had all sorts of things that they had thought of, tested for, all of it. And then at 16, they took out 25% of the middle lobe of my right lung. And they really didn't know how long I had. They estimated at most at those times in 2000 was about 5 years if I was lucky. And I kind of totally shut down, because before that I played sports. I played soccer, basketball. I was a dancer for a while. I played softball. I used to play roller hockey, like with my neighbors throughout our streets. And then I also was a pole vaulter and a sprinter. And when I had the lung surgery, I had to stop it all like cold turkey. And then I went from 103-pound pole vaulter to 217 pounds in 9.5 weeks over the summer. So my first day back to school.
Whoa. Back up. You went from what to what? I hadn't even heard this part of it.
Oh, I went from, so they started the prednisone in May. I got diagnosed April 13th of 2000. And so I was on 120 milligrams of prednisone a day, plus up to 1,000 milligrams of solumedrol. And we had to add in methotrexate because my knees got so much arthritis from the weight. I went from 103 pounds to 217 in 9.5 weeks. Yeah. Like my first day of roll call back to school, they had no idea who I was. No one had any clue that it was the same person.
Yeah. And you're 16 years old, which is hard enough for most people. And I think probably, and I've heard this elsewhere too, but it's like, from probably like 13 to 16, if you weren't a little bit shy or a little bit insecure, you were probably a bully. So,
right.
To put on,
I've heard that. Yeah,
like, because it's true. It really is true. Because like so many of us are insecure at that age, and it's hard for us obviously all to admit that. But like, I think now we all have some distance and have been through far more humiliating things than being a regular 15 or 16-year-old kid. So in 9 weeks, you put on 114
pounds.
2 pounds. Yeah. I was trying to do quick math.
Yeah. 114.
Yeah. So like, and I thought cause I put on like 15 to 20 pounds or so in a week, which is basically what you did for
several weeks.
Yeah. Several weeks. Cause I just kind of want to like dig in this a little bit. Cause I remember, cause when I was in the hospital in May of 2008, cause I also got diagnosed in April. I don't know what the hell it is about April. I'm so over that month. Everything bad that's ever happened to my family has basically happened in April.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's a really weird month. To take a side trip real quick, I was diagnosed in April. My parents also lost another child in April when I was 4. My mom had a child that was born with a heart defect, and she had holes between her ventricles. She only lived 19 days. That was all in April.
And you were 4, so you were aware that there was something going on, but not what.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like I remember mom being pregnant, and I remember them having a baby. I don't know that I necessarily I know we went to the hospital, me and my brother. But I don't know now what's a memory and what's me seeing pictures of us being at the hospital.
Right.
The thing that I do still remember that was really odd was me and my brother were in preschool, and the day that she died, nobody came and picked us up from school. My preschool teacher took me and my brother to Burger King and let us play in the ball, like the play place thing there at Burger King.
Yeah, the playscapes. Yeah.
Yeah. Then, which was weird for a 4-year-old. Like, why is mom not coming to get me? And because that wasn't some kids, that is their mom. But for us, my mom that's all she did was raise kids. So I do
Not all
remember.
she did. Now
No,
people are realizing in this crisis that like stay-at-home moms do a lot. You
yeah.
know, not
Well,
all
yeah,
she
but
did,
that's all.
but
Yeah, that was her goal. She wanted to be a mom. She came from a single, like a, she was an only child, and so all she ever wanted to do was have a family. And I'm not saying that like in a negative way because my mom, she was super mom.
right.
So I just remember that, and then I don't even remember who came and picked us up, but I do remember that that was being really weird. And then I remember getting home and like Allison, who was my sister, was like not there, and the vibe in the house was really weird. So, but I that's about all I can piece together of it. Fast forward 9 years later, I was in eighth grade, and in April, we went swimming at track practice, and one of my teammates drowned. So that yeah, that was April of 2000 and 2000 or 2001. I can't even remember now. So yeah, like there's a lot of bad stuff that's happened in April, and every year when April gets here, I just kind of hold my breath. So
Yeah. So you're about to like step into that on the topic of like.
yeah, yeah.
So when was your diagnosis? Because mine was April 13th. So they did the lung surgery on a Friday the 13th. They had to. And 13 was my number in soccer and in softball. Basketball was 3, but like it was always my lucky number. So most people were like afraid to go in. And I'm like, this is going to rock, you know, because I went into surgery and they're like, you have lung cancer. We're like 90% sure. And so when I came out, I was like, oh my God, I don't have cancer. This is great. And then I found out what I had, and I was like, whoa, this is different. You know, like no one even knows what the hell this is, you know?
Yeah, no. So I was April 23rd.
Okay.
And it was a Wednesday. And that's, I mean, I had done the test before that, but I specifically remember sitting at a track meet, watching my younger sister run when my doctor called me at like 6 o'clock, like after hours, which was like not a good thing.
Exactly. When it's an after hours call, it is. I've had doctors call me at like 10 p.m. before, and I'm like, well, this isn't going to be good. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
anytime after like 5 p.m., usually around here it's like 4:30, but like
yeah,
with the Boston doctor, anything after 5 is like, I really don't want to hear what you have to say, but I have to hear it.
yeah. This must be bad because I don't think you're just calling to check on me.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And that's how it is like your brain's like already, you see the number and you're like, why would they? And you are, but
Yeah,
like now you know, like, well, this isn't a normal situation. There's something extra.
yeah. And mine wasn't even one doctor. My two doctors got together and called me from one of their offices, which their offices honestly were about a half a mile apart. But because I had started with a lung doctor because I was experiencing asthma like symptoms, and then shortly soon after that, all the nose and ear stuff started. So I ended up with an ENT that was happened to be my lung doctor's like kind of buddy.
Yep.
And so it was my ENT that actually diagnosed me, but I was also still seeing the pulmonologist at times. And so when I'm pretty sure my ENT went over to my pulmonologist office and called me because they were like, they called me together. That was on like speakerphone. And I was just like, when they called, I was like looking at my phone. I still remember like, cause I had an old flip phone at the time. I remember looking at it being like, why is he calling me right now? And I
Right.
answer it. Yeah. You know, and you answer and you're like, wait, hey. And they're like, it was Dr. Aline. And he was like, me and Dr. Abrams are here. And I was like, both of you? Like for real?
You're like, two
So
of you took this call at the same time. So this is, you already know
yeah.
when you hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to your April diagnosis on the 13th. So you get diagnosed
Right.
and
It was my
you,
6th surgery of my lungs, which at the time they considered bronchoscopy surgery. So I had 4 bronchoscopies, a thoracentesis, which is like when they put a needle in your lung to take a biopsy, and then they realized it was still growing. even with what they were giving. So that's when they decided to go in and like fully take it out, because it was starting to attach to the diaphragm itself, which would have
Really
ended my
screwed stuff
life
up.
at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just one of those things where you're just like, and my doctors, when they told me, like, it was in person, and they just deflated. And these are doctors who had at that time known me for a while, and who had done like controlled tests. Like, I had such weird allergies. Like, I used to be allergic to Polo cologne, that I would have asthma attacks from just the smell of it. And they ended up doing one in a controlled hospital setting. And it was like an anaphylaxis response. Like, my throat would close, but my lungs would still be clear. And they were like, we have no idea how someone develops this allergy. And so they used to give me epinephrine updrafts, which is what I used to have to take. I used to have to get the refills of the hospital at the ER. I used to have to fill my prescription at the ER because they didn't have them except in EpiPen form. And this way it would open my throat in order to get the stuff to my lungs, because it wasn't my lungs or heart collapsing. It was like my actual throat closing.
Yeah. And you start learning, and I guess you're 16 at the time, and you start like slowly learning like how fragile your body is. And I don't mean that in like, I mean, obviously we're just like a meat vehicle wrapped in some soft tissue and some brittle bones, but like the fact that like just like how fragile a normal functioning body is.
Right. And like
Like
before that, I played like soccer for like a state team, and I was completely healthy in every way you could think of. Like, there was nothing that I was doing, so like at that moment for me, it was like, well, how can this happen to people that are doing the right things? And it still can. And I think for me at that time, it was like, wow, like it, we can take care of our bodies the best we can, but that doesn't mean we can prevent certain things from happening no matter who we are. And it was sort of shocking that like that can still happen. I don't know. For me, it was that like, those things still happen. And at 16, I had limited ability to understand science. And now I call, like, at the time when the doctors would speak to my parents, I determined at that time, I'm going to learn doctor speak, as I called it, which was like all the technical terms. I've learned all of them, how to pronounce them, what to say. And I started at 16 because I was like, everything they're saying, I don't understand. And why don't I understand it? Like, and I became obsessed at the time with learning all the doctor language. So I made sure that I was understanding what they were saying. I mean, they were good in layman's terms to me, but when they talked to their colleagues or my parents or the nurses and doctors interacted while I was living in the hospital at the time, like, I wanted to know what they were saying and understand it. So I don't know, did you go experience that when you had it in 08?
So like I was already kind of, I was in my junior year of college, and I was studying the health, science, exercise stuff. So I had a basic understanding of things.
Okay.
And how the processes of the body work, right? Because you've been through biology and physiology classes. You've been through anatomy classes. You've been through like the chemistry classes and all the stuff on the human body. So I already had a basic understanding of processes. So obviously especially when you're dealing with all these specialty doctors too, there's doctors that do nothing that obviously deal with the nose or deal with the lungs or deal with the
Right.
kidneys, that they know more about that organ than you could possibly ever understand. But I had enough of a basic understanding of how all those systems were supposed to function. I still to this day haven't done a good job of learning the pronunciations of everything because I suck at grammar and I failed English in high school. And I just honestly suck at that stuff, and I'm terrified of it and hate it. So,
well, some doctors actually, because they have different accents or are from different places, and some of the ones I've dealt with do pronounce things differently. So I've always gone with the one that was like eosinophilic granulomatosis with I say angiitis because I used to say angiitis and people were like, that's not what it is. So I've like had to adjust that because before it was the new name in 2013. In 2000 on, it was Churg-Strauss syndrome, or CSS as we called it.
Yeah.
So when it changed, I was like, because yours was Wegener's until 2013, you know?
Why did they change y'all's?
They changed all of ours. So when doctors see our exact like the name, they can have some of the tips of what is happening in the disease. So even if they've never seen the disease, they have an idea of the medical terms that could be affected and the systems that may have parts of it. So they're aware of what it affects when we go see them for doctors that have never experienced it, which I thought was kind of a cool way to explain it. Because if I went to the ER, which I did a lot as a kid, it would be, well, I have CSS, and they'd look it up and they'd be like, there's like nothing online about this. And this was like 2000, 2003.
Yeah. How old were you, by the way, when you started realizing that doctors do nothing but Google stuff?
Well, so luckily the doctors that I had knew. I mean, I was the first one that my doctors had at Boston Children's Hospital. And so they wrote a medical journal, but it wasn't published till 2006 because they couldn't use like one case study. So they had to wait for another case study.
Yeah.
But anytime I went to the ER locally, it was searched and they're like, we don't get it. And so when it was changed to explain like eosinophilic means you have a lot of in your white blood cells, you have high eosinophils, which is your allergy cell in my case. Granulomatosis, which is the granulomas that form in our bodies in different parts. And with polyangiitis is the inflammation parts of it as well. And so it tells
poly
doctors,
meaning multiple, right? Like the multiple, basically multiple systems that are inflamed.
Right.
Right. That's how I've thought of it. I don't know if that's right. That's how I would have broken it down in my head, though.
No, it is. And so it was telling doctors ways to look for things without them having to look it up and read and make sure they're getting the right information at that moment. It's like basically what they can search and find. And so this way it explains what it is. So like eosinophilic or granulomatosis, they would be checking for things. It's a rheumatic disease. So they'll check ANCA in some cases, or, you know, SED rates, which is your inflammation rate. So they kind of have ideas on how to begin the process of looking at a patient that comes to the ER where an ER doctor's never seen it.
All right. Yeah, because I was just I was curious because I just been told, especially with the Wegener's thing, because Wegener was a Nazi doctor, which is
so we're Churg and Strauss. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I had been told, but that makes a lot more sense. They're like, let's give the doctors actual information, because like I too started learning probably about 2013 that, or 2012, that like when you go to the ER, like those doctors are literally just Googling what you have. They're not like looking through a medical journal or looking at, like, I just always assumed that these doctors had like, I don't know, medical books, or didn't even really give it a thought. I was like, they're looking at something way more. No, they're literally just Googling it, and half the time looking at Wikipedia or WebMD.
That's why Dr. Amir Hussein, who's done some of our, he's been at the last 2 symposiums. He's been amazing. It made me see, like, he's like, we learn about vasculitis, and we know I think there's 16 to 19, somewhere in there, types of vasculitis. So if they learn about it one day, that's all the ones they learn about in one day. And so like an ER doctor learns about tons of things. And if think about how long you're in there for, like they're going to remember one specific day. And I never really thought of it that way, but it's why we're rare diseases, like part of the NORD, which is National Organization for Rare Disease. It's why we're considered, you know, those things, because they don't learn a lot about it. It's not a ton of people and something they learn about extensively, like they would with heart disease or congestive heart failure or diabetes, or, you know, stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, because like they're dealing with trauma most of the time, and most of the people that are coming into an ER, it's like, I chopped my toe off, like, or I, you know, I got sick and I can't go to the, you know, I might be pregnant, like all the weird things that people go to the ER for. Like most of them aren't for complications with an extremely rare disease.
Exactly.
So like you like, because we have so little understanding about our medical system and the way things work. But you have to start learning about that, unfortunately, at a really young age. You're a kid and you're starting to learn the stress of dealing with the medical bills, dealing with the medical system, dealing with doctors, dealing with nurses, dealing with some doctors' egos. And like, most people don't ever understand that and understand what really goes on. We get up close and personal with it, which is stressful at times, but it also empowers you later once you understand how the system works.
Right.
I say very often to people that don't know who they're dealing with, like that they're dealing with a patient that's educated. I'm like, there's a difference between you can't do something and you won't do something. You're choosing to not do something, whatever it is I'm dealing with. Oh, we can't do that. No, it's not that you can't do that. It's like you don't want to do that. Right. Because it might be an inconvenience for you. It's not that you can't physically do whatever I'm asking you to do. It's just that you won't do it. And there's a difference. And when you start going down that road with them, you're either going to end up getting your way or you're going to end up pissing a lot of people off.
Right. And, like in the beginning, it was eye-opening to see, but I was crazy lucky because the only reason they found the growth before it like completely destroyed my lungs was that a doctor at the local ER, he saw that I had lung pain. I was crying. My heart rate was crazy. And he was like, well, the x-ray came back clear. And so like insurance protocol reasons say that I shouldn't do any more tests, but I can tell something's wrong. So he ordered a CT scan when insurance protocols basically at the time said that he shouldn't. And that's how they found it. And they found that on x-rays, it wasn't showing up, but actually on a CAT scan, they could see it quite big and they weren't really sure why. In my lungs, it wasn't showing up at the time. But if he hadn't run that test, I wouldn't be one that's still here. And then you realize that they're going against their head of physicians and they're going against their protocols they're given. And that puts them in danger as well. So like, it was different for me at that period to understand that like it was such a moral dilemma for this man. Like, I'm not supposed to do this, but like something's clearly wrong. And he did it anyway, And it was stuff I never thought of before because I was like, well, obviously they're going to do all the tests they can to make sure I'm okay. Not realizing there's so much more involved that I was not aware of,
Yeah, that's the stuff that's really, really terrifying. And it's like you're literally alive today, right now. Like we're having this conversation because a doctor basically decided to say F you to an insurance company and do a scan that needed to be done.
Right.
Like that has to just be like a complete just like
mind F. Yes.
Yeah. Like it's just complete like because like we all patients owe their lives to modern medicine and doctors because if we would have gotten this 30 years ago, most of us would be dead.
Right.
Like, and it's not even a question. Like we would be dead. Because they didn't have the knowledge or understanding of the diseases to stop them. All they could do was slow them down. So
it's crazy
all of us,
Dr. Fauci that's involved in all of this COVID-19, he came up with the first treatment for GPA, which at the time was Wegener's in 1985. I did not know that. Are you kidding? You didn't?
No, I knew there was I didn't know that was him.
Yes, it's the same guy. So in 1985, he developed prednisone and Cytoxan treatments for Wegener's patients. They declared it the biggest rheumatic discovery in 20 years, like back in 1985. They used that treatment at one point on me, and he is someone that helped develop that to keep patients alive where they are now. And so
he already had a boss status for the way he's been navigating this. and he's
then
a
he
runner.
went to the HIV studies and like he continued on through all of that. But he was the one that originally came up with our treatments for GPA, which ended up also going into Polyangiitis nodosum, I think, and also to eventually EGPA and such. I think MPA ended up using the same treatment. Like the ones he declared it for were the first two, but it's a treatment a lot of us have been on, and it was from him. So I tend to like really listen to what he's saying right now because.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, there's, and this is kind of a bigger topic, but like you, when you do get this disease, and like I have obviously enough of a understanding of between dealing with doctors myself and the education that I have, formal educational training and like the exercise science stuff, like you kind of learn who's kind of like bullshitting you and who's not, and what doctors might be kind of pushing an agenda and what are like, no, these are the facts. Like, I'm not trying to scare you, but like, this is what, because that's what we've had to deal with. Like, we've had to have a doctor look at, be like, I don't know what's going to happen if this doesn't work, or this only has a 20% chance of working or a 40% chance of working. And when you are around doctors like that, you learn the ones that are going to give you the real numbers and be just like kind of brutally honest, which in the case that we're dealing with right now can cause people to kind of go into pandemonium or panic or whatever. But it's like, no, this is why I want to tell you these numbers. This is why I want to educate you about this, because you need to understand the danger of this. Like if we had not listened to our doctors that had instilled like, hey, this is what you are dealing with, then most of us would not have followed. Like, we wouldn't have treated treatment seriously. We would not have treated trying to live better lives more serious. You know, we would probably be dead. So you kind of learn you get your BS detector kind of early, not early, but it probably takes a year or two as a patient to kind of get your BS detector with doctors. And when you run into them. I ran into a pediatrician this week or last week here in town that wanted to try on some shoes, and we told him he couldn't do it at the running store because it might contaminate the shoe. And he's like, I can't believe everybody's freaking out about this thing. And I'm like, you're a doctor and I should tee off on you right now, but I can't. I'm just going to walk away. So it's just because they have a doctor label in front of their name doesn't mean they're, always unfortunately the most educated. I know a lot of them are trying to do their best, but you start to see the different levels of doctors for sure. And
all of my doctors that I've trusted, I'm sure that you've had this experience, all the doctors that I've trusted, and this is, I mean, I had doctors that, the doctor that diagnosed me in 2000 at the Children's Hospital, I spoke to 2 months ago. We did like a FaceTime live and we checked in and talked. And, like, these are the doctors that, I mean, when I was 16 years old, and other doctors I've had since, basically all the doctors I've trusted most of my life have said, listen, we really don't know what's going to happen. We have this plan. We have this idea, or this is being tested in treatments similar to disease like yours, but not your disease. And they're always honest in saying, I don't know. And those are the ones I trust the most, because the ones that always have an answer might not be exact, but the ones that are like, I don't know, but I think that it's worth a try. I think it's going to do more good than it would do harm. And it is why I'm here. Like April 13th, it'll be 20 years. It was those doctors willing to take risks with me because I wanted to be a part of all of it. Do you know what I mean? And, one doctor came to my wedding. The other two had called or messaged, that couldn't make it. And it just made such a difference, because those are the people along the way. Like, you know what? I can't guarantee you what's going to happen. I don't know either way, but like, this is something we could try. And this is something else we could try. But without having any real knowledge at the time, it was different,
Yeah. So you're 16 when all this goes down. And like, I guess kind of like take us through those next steps, because that's when a lot of the throw shit at the wall and see if this works kind of thing starts to happen. Right. Because there isn't, especially at the time, there weren't drugs or medications specifically for your EGPA. And I guess just kind of like take us through those next, several stages and get us kind of catch us up to like where you are at now.
So I've over lifetime, and I learned some of these that I didn't even know I necessarily took, but from medical information that's like in my charts and stuff I've seen. So I've had, for just the EGPA part, not for like the nerve damage and such other parts, but I've had prednisone, obviously, solumedrol, methylprednisone, methotrexate, mycophenolate, which is Cellcept, an anti-rejection drug, rituximab, azathioprine, Cytoxan, mepolizumab, which is what I'm currently on. And then like every medicine that they had that they were looking into, like the IgG information, I mean, they were willing to do whatever it took to find something. And that's what made the difference to me. Is now I'm still alive and I've been on all of those meds, and they've learned different things from them, because I'm also in a research study. I just re-signed up after 15 years. So every 3 to 6 months I give blood and stuff, and they have copies of the tissue for my lung surgeries, because I've had several, and bronchoscopies and endoscopies and colonoscopies and such. I think they have some of it. I don't know, they have all of it still, but to try and learn something so eventually they could treat people. And now they're coming up with FDA approved medications, which is something like I really didn't think I'd be alive to see, if I'm very honest about it. It was really shocking to me to be able to be here to see that. And then that one of those medications has helped me immeasurably. However, we all know meds are different and people respond different to different meds. But it was what I did all the trials and tests, and we'll see if this works sort of thing for, so people could have hopefully more hope really in their day-to-day interaction and not have to go through all the trial and error and disappointment, if and there's still trials like that going on, like the Vancopan's one they're studying that's like prednisone, but it doesn't have a lot of the prednisone problems that people would face. And like that's the whole reason we've done what we've done, like you included, like trying things, seeing how they work without knowing what's going to happen, because we did want better lives for, I call us the diagnosed younger adult group, because we all know I'm old now, but I never thought I'd be old. So like I'm very thankful for it. And I don't know, did you ever feel that way? Like I'd never get to be a certain age?
Yeah, I kind of for a long time just lived very recklessly. Cause I was so unsure of what was gonna happen with my life, especially after the first time I had it, obviously was, or my first bout with it was like the real kick in the teeth. Like, oh my God, I could die from this. Like, this is scary. Like, I still remember reading like the one little website or Wikipedia. I think it was a Wikipedia page on GPA. Like after that call I had with my doctor, because at that time I had to go home and read about it, because it was a flip. It was 2008. Like everybody's got flip phones, so like I had to go home and get on my computer. And I remember I do remember Googling it and bringing up the Wikipedia page and like reading through like the first like basically paragraph that was on the page at the time, and seeing the statistics, even though I didn't know at the time that they were old. You're seeing like, it's like a couple of cases per million, it's got a high death rate. It affects all these organs and tissues. And I was just like, I literally just like closed out of the window and closed my laptop and was like, all right, well, I'm not going to deal with this right now. Like it was just like an avoidance thing. And then once I got a handle on it because they were sending me off to a rheumatologist to be treated. And once I saw him, and we got kind of a treatment plan, and I got worse before I got better, like a lot of us do. because I had a rheumatologist didn't all of a sudden mean that I was better. They had to find the right treatment plan, and it ended up being the Fauci's plan, which was the Cytoxan and prednisone. But the first couple of things they tried didn't do very well, and I ended up in the hospital myself. That's when I put on all that weight, and it's really weird because like I at that time was like I had that attitude of like I'm gonna kick this thing, I'm gonna get back. It wasn't till I started having relapses in 12 and 13. And I kind of had the attitude from probably like 2009 or so, 2012, like I've beat this thing back. Like I'm going to be in the 50% that never has a relapse. I'm going to just be better and move on with life. I'm going to do what I want to do because, I've learned this valuable lesson of how fragile life is. Like I'm going to live life like I want to. Didn't care. And then I started having relapses, and it honestly made me worse. Like I was just like, screw it. Like, and I don't want to say my attitude got worse, but that's when all the depression and anxiety and panic problems set in. And I really started living a lot harder and a lot faster and a lot more reckless because I just kind of was like, well, if one of these is going to kill me, and I don't know that I'm going to make it to 30, I've got this opportunity to keep running. And I lived this life of extremes. Like it was just big ups and downs. And because I didn't care if I was like, I'm probably not going to make it. So, because if these relapses just keep getting worse, then screw it, screw it. And, it hasn't been to the last couple of years, honestly, the last really 3 that I've really kind of slowed down and been like, you know what? I'd actually like to have a long life. Like, let's not be so stupid and reckless. And
right. Not that
because I didn't think I'd see 30.
I have totally been one to be like, I'm dying anyway. I can't take anything with me to the grave. So I'm just going to have a good time and be around people that make me happy and laugh and smile. And there were times where I was just so afraid that getting close to people, like in my mind, I thought of it as like, when I do die, it's going to destroy these people. And so I shouldn't get too close to people, or because, for the VF for a while, I was doing golf tournaments. I think I did them for 5 years, 08 to 09 to 2014, I think. And then I stopped doing the golf tournaments because they were physically, emotionally, like it's a lot of work. And I was just like, I did everything I could. And then after that, and after the Philadelphia symposium, I stepped back from all of it, from every single person with vasculitis. I was just so convinced, like at that year, I was hitting 13 years since being diagnosed. And I was just like, there's no way that this is going to keep going. And so I just segregated myself from people I really had to talk to about it with on a regular basis. But it was so much a part of my everyday that it becomes so heavy. It's heavy. It's very heavy on you, that you want to be like everyone else, especially when you're those ages. You just want to be exactly like everyone else and not have the worries and the fear that you have that you don't talk about, because how do you talk about it?
Yeah, we're dragging around this like 747 cargo jet of baggage behind us.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Like everybody's got a little bit of baggage, but like we're dragging this thing around behind us that, we've learned to carry pretty well. And if somebody were to just see us walking, they're like, oh, you look pretty good. You look like you got it together. But it's like that you look over our shoulder and you're like, wait, what?
Right.
You're doing what now?
Exactly. And like, then once you tell people, like sometimes I would tell like everyone I knew so they knew ahead of time, because I personally used to faint up to 11 times a day, and it freaks the people the F out. It really does. My friends had to give me EpiPens, and like I was like stopping breathing. And so I was just traumatizing people. And so I started telling everyone that I saw or met, like, this might happen and I don't want to freak you out, because I already felt like such a freak that I would overly talk about it sometimes because I was so afraid of scaring people and making their lives worse that, you know, and in the meantime, I did lose friends that didn't get it, or friends that, you know, thought they got it and would try and be there, but I would still, even from them, hide a lot of it. Or like now, the group of friends I have, I've had some of them for 10 years or longer. And, you know, I can be real and honest, but it took a real long time to get there. And I don't want people to wait so long, but I also can't go through their experience for them and just have to be there until they get there.
Yeah, that's the thing that's kind of tough, because like that's something that I did not excel at. I'm already, and even before, I mean, I was the kind of misfit toy always growing up anyway, and this only made things worse, of course. But yeah, I lost a lot of friends in my late teens, early 20s. Because of everything I was going through, because of how I was handling it and processing it, or lack thereof, I guess, handling and processing it and dealing with stuff. And you do learn, like, and it sucks because like sometimes like you do just want to be able to talk about it, and it is heavy stuff to talk about. And you unfortunately learn which one of your friends that you can and can't talk to about that stuff, because a lot of people haven't really experienced a lot of adversity yet and don't really know how to handle the heaviness of somebody going through a really, really bad day. And like I still vaguely remember talking to a roommate at one point in time, and I had actually had an infusion that day, and of course you don't feel great after those, after having tons of toxic chemicals dumped in your body. And I was talking to my roommate at the time about it, and they're like, well, I don't, like, they just flat out said, like, I don't want to talk about that, man. That's just too depressing. And you're like, well, I'm sorry, my life's too depressing for you. Like, F you. Like, are you serious, man? Like, I thought we were friends. And so like it forces you to, you do put up guards, and it's why it was kind of hard for me, I think, because I had seen so many people not handle it well. And a lot of it was also how I had handled it too.
Right.
So it does. It's like your group gets a lot smaller, but you do learn the people that are around you that can handle or listen to you talk about it, and not like completely wig out or shut off, or be like, man, why are you being so depressing? And it's like, well, this is just my life. Like, I'm not trying to be depressing. It's just like, this is really, really difficult for me.
Right.
I'm not trying to put something on you. It's just, I'm trying to talk through something. And sometimes you just, because we are very, very isolated, and sometimes you want to be able to confide in the people around you, but it's difficult because people don't understand. And I think that's where it wasn't till 2017 when I really started meeting all of y'all that I was like, oh my God, there's these other people that I can like talk to. And I don't remember who it was. Somewhere along the line, I think either one of those nights we were all hanging out, or somebody said something. And so I don't even remember who it was at this point. But somebody was like, yeah, we're all dying. Some of us just faster than others. And I was like, oh my God, these are my people. Like, like, these are my people. We can say really dark, screwed up stuff around each other. We can share these experiences. We can share these stories. And for most of us, we understand that it's like not you just being like down on yourself or down on life and dragging a black cloud around. You're not just depressed. It's like you're going through some real struggles, and you need to be able to talk with somebody that can understand that. Because it's like, I honestly think like the friends that I have now that all have this, like, are way better than seeing a therapist. And I don't think people like should replace therapy, but like there's something about having y'all that just increases my quality of life and my ability to just be able to share things and talk to things, because we all do have those times where you're just like, you can scream into the void, but it doesn't really help.
Right. And especially like for us this week, I mean, I've been part of other calls and conference calls that were from before this past week, but like we did our young adult one with Ben and Kaylee and Allison the other, like last week, and that was like such a therapy in a way, just to be like, just to talk about it. It gets really scary. It is overwhelming. And then to also, like, we want to be what keeps people, like, what keeps people continuing, because like we know what that darkness is, like we've lived it, and I've lived it many times, and I've lived it in ways that, like, my friends would EpiPen me and save my life, and then I would refuse to get in an ambulance. I would go to the hospital if I really had to, like the next day, but I would AMA sign out from getting in the ambulance because in 2008 I was in a coma. My roommate from college was with me in the front seat, and I guess they pulled over and were trying to intubate me, and she listened to a lot of it. And I felt like I had totally traumatized her. We're so close now. I mean, we were then. Like, I got to go to her wedding. She was going to be part of mine, but she lives and works in Alaska now, so it's really hard to see her. But we do, like, FaceTime sometimes, and like we went through some like crazy crap that, like, if she wasn't there for, I never would have gotten through. And for her, it was really hard too. And she's someone that didn't live with, like, chronic illness like I had, but she was willing to, like, still be there. And that was like someone that's different than the people that we talk to. But then the people we talk to that get it are so, like you said, invaluable. Like, I've had both sides of the coins. I've had friends that have no experience with chronic illness but me, but it was like EpiPenning me or saving my life or calling 911 or being there for some of the worst things. You could see someone, choking to death, not being able to breathe, asthma attacks, throat closings, like things I can't imagine seeing my friends in. And these are the people who have rallied around me without having the disease, throwing benefits to help pay my medical stuff when I needed it. And I've been lucky to see both sides. Like, I don't know what I do without my friends I just need to talk to. And I have, like, another group of us that I talk to daily lately, especially lately with how crazy things have been, just through text. And sometimes just sending funny, dark things that we need to get out, because that's where we're living in that moment, that we're not holding it in and giving it to others. But it's hard to find groups that will do that. I was lucky to have that. But then when you find groups like us that really get it, you can also be real in a way that isn't scaring the people who have already been traumatized by your life,
Yeah, there's a bit of a shackle that comes off, I think, with all of us. Like, and I did too. Like, I've got some dear friends that, I mean, heck, my best friend that wrote the foreword in my book, he's never dealt with a chronic illness in his life,
right.
But he's still my best friend. My girlfriend, I think, is almost the complete opposite of me. She could eat like garbage, do whatever she wants, and be fine, and it's a completely different lifestyle. But obviously both of them have been invaluable to who I am as a person and me being alive today. But yeah, there's a sense of things that I think that we all, like, there's no fear of us, like, when we say something that it might be taken the wrong way. Like,
right. Exactly.
Just put it out there, and it's kind of like, sorry, not sorry. Like, we just put it out there, and we all laugh and, like, recognize where whatever's being said comes from. And
right.
it's not a malicious thing. It's not even like, because sometimes it could look like you're, it could be self-malicious, but oftentimes it's not. And I think we recognize that.
Right.
Because also too, like, I mean, we all do need, I think it is important to have, I don't want to say regular or normal people around us, but I think that is, important for all of us, to have some sort of normalcy and barometer, and people that aren't, people that are more a rock, because we are, so up and down. We
Right.
ride that roller coaster of health and emotion, and having people around you that are a bit more on solid ground, I think, is very valuable, because they can kind of be the thing that helps steady you in those times of turmoil. Whereas, like, for instance, if you and I were in a romantic relationship with both of our ups and downs, that would be a disaster.
Right. Exactly.
Like, there's no way that that's healthy.
Adam is like my even keel. Like, he's never gotten
Yeah.
stitches, broken a bone, been to the doctors, like, besides for a physical. Like, we're totally opposites. He keeps everything clean. He cooks. Like, I'm in the meantime, like, freaking out about something. And he's like, yeah, you just haven't slept. You're on too much prednisone. Like, totally not, in, getting in that space where he's like, it's me being like, yeah, I guess he is right. I just up to 40 milligrams of prednisone recently, and I am a little delusional, like, and I said that to you the other day, and you're like, yes, I can tell you are. It's just like, imagine
you were sending texts like an angry 12-year-old middle school girl, like,
yes.
just like one after another. And you start, like, it is funny because you do recognize that in people, because, like, when you're on prednisone, man, your brain just goes like, it's on. Oh, yeah, it is on so much overdrive. Like, and you start to recognize, it's like, I bet she's cranked right now. Like, it's like somebody's on meth. It's just like, you're cranked, or coke, or whatever other drug you can think of that's a stimulant like that. It's like, somebody, you're just cranked.
That's what prednisone does. It's like, that's why I text you at the end. Can you tell that I've had too much prednisone today? I hadn't slept in like 50 something hours. It was like, and that's just, my brain will just, and it's just because my body, luckily, I've been super lucky to not have to be on higher doses lately. The only dose I was on was because I'm adrenal insufficient. So it was just a maintaining dose. So it was basically like me being on almost none, or like 1 milligram of prednisone a day, which, compared to, I've been off it twice, one for a month and one for like 4 days in the entire 20 years I've been diagnosed. So I've always had to have some prednisone. I used to be at like 20, 25 to 40 regularly, sometimes 60. And I went up to 122 separate times. So I haven't been up for like an extended period of time in a while. And I'm like, Kate, you're losing it. Like, I like looked at what I was texting you, and it was just like 6 texts in a row. And I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, it was just my brain going. And then I afterwards was like, what am I doing? Like, it takes me a minute to even see that that's what it is,
Oh, it's just out of control. I mean, your foot's just like, you've got the throttle pinned to the floor, the gas, you're white knuckling the steering wheel. Like, you don't know it. Like, and we've all been there, like, for sure. And it is funny when you recognize it in other people. Like, you're like, I know what this is.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
And what that's the thing too, is like, none of us are going to get upset over it. It's just like, it's like, you obviously, like, have compassion. It's like, she's probably on shitloads of prednisone right now. Like, you just let it go. It's not going to upset any of us at this point. Like, or get us off our rocker. It's just like, I bet somebody hasn't slept.
Right.
So,
like, it right away. And I stopped and
yeah.
like, what did I just say? Like, I had no thought at all. My fingers were just going. And that was it. And then afterwards, I'm like, what did I even just write? And I'm looking and I'm like, wow. And so luckily I can recognize it myself. It used to take me a long time to like recognize it. But like, I do, and I try and like mention to Adam, like, today I'm a little, we're over the line of delusional. Like, I'm so sorry. And he hasn't left the house. We've been in it since the 12th. We've been in, not for having the disease, but for just being cautious. So he's been working from home. He's super lucky that he gets to work from home. But I'll like, he's been in this house. I've been in this house alone. And then I just pick up my cat and start singing and dancing. And he's like, yep, you've lost it. It's okay. And
normal behavior.
We can laugh about it, Oh no, like, I was singing I've been working on the railroad because I wasn't sleeping and making my cat pretend to shovel dirt and throw it over her shoulder.
Yeah, what do you think is the craziest moment that you've had, like moment of like legit psychosis? Because like I know what mine is. Yeah, on prednisone from it. Like for
Stopping
legit,
taking
like
it. At
okay.
60 milligrams, I was like, I've gotten too fat. I haven't slept in 5 days, and I stopped taking it. And I ended up in a coma because I just dropped taking it daily.
That definitely tops mine. But
that's why I tell everyone, like, it's making you crazy. I get it, but please keep taking it. Like,
yeah,
because I saw the terrible side of it, and I thought it was just like gaining so much weight. I was 23 or 24, and I gained so much weight and was feeling so terrible about myself and wasn't sleeping and was getting more depressed and was like just spiraling. That I was like, if I stop taking it for a few days, I'll feel better and like refocus. And
yeah.
I didn't have any idea in 2008 that would happen, but it did. And then it totally freaked me out. And telling my doctor, I was so afraid that he was going to like never be my doctor again. Because I was like hysterical. Like, I'm so sorry, but like, I have to tell you. And, that's why I always tell like the young adults, like, I know it's hard, but please keep taking your meds. As long as your prescriber is saying you should be taking them, you should take them. And it's very dangerous not to, So for me, that was my craziest. Yours?
Yeah. I had about a 36-hour period, and it was at the tail end of probably 50 or 55 hours of sleeplessness, where I was convinced there were people in my house. and
Yep.
and I was like, I'm being watched. There's people in this house. They're looking at me like I had everything closed, like all the stuff closed. I was like holed up in a room, and you think people are in the house. Any noise you hear, they're coming to get me. Like, and you're just literally like, and of course, like eventually you have to use the bathroom, you have to get food. Like
right.
You can't just like sit in your bed and like, you're just like, and what's so crazy is like hours can pass by and you're just stuck in your own thoughts. Like to the outside, it might even look like you're numb, but you're laying there and your brain is on overdrive. And like just laying there and sitting in bed like for hours, like thinking that somebody was in my house and coming to get me. Like it was terrifying. And I like laugh at it now, but I was petrified that I was like in a horror movie. Basically.
In that moment, you can't see beyond it. Exactly. I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like that was just like where I was like, and then like eventually, like, because I was living with my brother at the time, and eventually he got home from work or whatever, and I think I even came out to him and like joked about it or said something to him. I was like, yeah, I think somebody was in the house. I feel like somebody was watching me, and he just kind of like looked at me and laughed or whatever. But like it was kind of the thing that was able to kind of like break the cycle in my brain, was him getting home. And I was like, okay, like I've got this I think I've got this under control now. And you kind of start to like get some perspective on it. But like, man, in those moments, it is terrifying.
Right.
Like of like just what places the human brain can go to in your consciousness. And how like, because we kind of talked about this earlier, like how fragile all of this is, like that line between like just you being normal, like as far as like your regular thought patterns and behaviors, to like one extra little pill can just completely send you into psychosis.
Right. And like it reminds you like to check in. I like, now that I've been on it, I've been even more vigilant about writing every day, like stuff down, like something I'm feeling, or like, and trying to make sure I'm sharing positive things, but also things that could be helping like the community, like donation info, stuff like that. For like, I posted one for Brigham and Women's. They have a donation email, and I posted one for like Bay State Health, which is the local hospital to me that's dealing with it. Because I was like, at least I'm doing something to help, because I like gave how you could donate PPE items, just trying to find something positive despite knowing I'm on these meds and they are like overtaking things sometimes. They do, you have to step away sometimes and be like, okay,
Yeah, it's have you ever gone back and read any of your stuff that you've written when you've been like whacked out of your mind?
Yes.
Like, have you ever? Yeah.
I miss words because I was like writing so furiously that like there's full words missing. And this isn't even like all typing. Some of this is like written out. And I'm like, I can't even tell what I'm trying to say or mad at some points. And I would be like, what? It didn't make sense when you read it back later and you're like, wow. That's why I don't post them right away. I have to think and be like, this is something that might be positive. I have to like step back and be like, this could be good. This could be good. Compared to just my ranting.
Yeah, well, I miss words when I'm sober and clear-headed because I suck at the English language. But it's just like, to me, if I go back and read any of them, and I actually honestly haven't in a while, because some of it scares me, man. Like with where my thought process was at, with where my head was at. Like when I read any of the stuff that I've written down, it just like, and I don't know if it's out of fear of going back into those places, but it's so raw. I mean, I've done it at times just to get some perspective on things.
Right.
And I was writing at the time to get some of those emotions out. But it's
cathartic. It's definitely cathartic.
It is, but it's also, it's almost embarrassing. Like, and there's nobody else even reading it at times. And, certainly you and I both have posted and put tons of stuff out there about our journeys with all of this and how we've managed to navigate the tumultuous waters of this disease and the things that we've had to deal with. But at times it's been very hard because like and I don't know if I'm afraid of it, afraid of ending back up there. But some of it's really, really embarrassing for me to even admit like where I was at emotionally and the things that I was struggling with. And because it's raw, even though like at the time it was just like you were writing and it's just like, this is where my head was at on a daily basis and the things I was thinking about and my thought processes. And it's just like, it's uncomfortable. It really makes it like, I get really uncomfortable and anxious and like sweaty palms when I like go back and look at any of it.
I try and look at it, and this has only been over the last like 2 years. I'll be totally honest. So like 18 to 20. I try and look at it with hindsight. At that time, that's what I knew. That's where I was. And it's made me who I am today and what I'm going through today and what I'm doing to help those that I can today. And so I had to be to those dark places to get to the good places, as you say in your book. That's a paraphrase, but you have to go through the dark times to get to the better place. And so you might be in the smack dab of your darkest times right now, no matter like who it is, but you have to look at it kindly. You become better by living through those spaces, and you put that so greatly in your book. As I was reading it again last night for like, I think it was the 1,000th time I posted, like, I have like highlights and everything. You say so much in that book that on a regular basis I can relate to. And it's, I wrote like a bunch of chapters and basically a book years and years ago about how I would never get married because like who is going to want to be with someone like me, and like all these things I used to say, and now like I have Adam, and all the things I never thought I would get, I got. But I had to look at all those really dark writings of mine that at the time, like, that's really what I believed to be true. And it was the dark space I was in. And I have grown from it. And all I can do is hope others, like, know that no matter how dark it is now, like, you could grow from it. Like, reach out, talk to people, you know, we're here.
Do you, because I'm asking this because I do it to Rihanna all the time, but like, do you ever ask Adam, like, why are you with me? Like, this is a train wreck most of the time. Like, why me? Like, of all the people that you could have picked, you picked me.
There's a lot of that it used to happen a lot more. Like, I remember one day I just like walked in and was like so upset. Like, you could have such a better life. Like, why are you putting yourself through this horror of my life? You know, I remember like, you know, thinking that it was only going to make his life, like, I was going to make his life worse. And that's happened with friends too. Like, I worry on a regular basis that knowing me will hurt them in some way. And I just had to accept that if they were willing to love me for everything that I am, I'm willing to do the same. And he reminds me that despite some of the sucky things about my life, like, I still have so much goodness in it.
Yeah, that's, you know, and I don't know if, like, God, I'd probably ask Rihanna that like once a month. And half of it's like joking because it's because I've either done something stupid or screwed something up that I, you know, that's like minuscule, but I'm like, you know, and I don't know if I'm asking it out of like seeking the affirmation of it all, but like it does, like it makes me wonder, especially when you hear from so many other patients, or in my case of experience in myself, like, you know, relationships not working out with people like us, and you're like why would somebody choose this? Like, what are we really, because I think I ask myself that a lot. It's like, what am I really bringing to the table in this? Because like,
but that's
dragging
about
a lot of
you
baggage.
but that's you feeling like you're insecure because you are doing all these things and you just want to be perfect, because we all want to be perfectionists. And sometimes we just have to realize it's okay to just be okay and do what we can while we can, but also admit we can't do it all. That was hard for me. Like, Adam was working from away from home every day, so I'd do things like little by little over the day. And now that he's home all the time, I'm always like, I'm not doing enough. I haven't cleaned. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I've become like more insecure with all the things I'm not getting done, even though that's not coming from him. That's totally coming from me. You know, I just feel like a slacker because usually it's like over time it takes me to get things done, you know. And that's my own crap right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I go through that too with the lifestyle that I live, because it's obviously very different from Rihanna's, because, you know, she gets up, she goes to school, she teaches all day, she coaches, she comes home, like, just kind of, it's not a regular 9 to 5, but like there's a regular pattern to it. It's like I do all these different things. There's days where I'm almost doing nothing but running. There's days where I'm like super busy and I'm gone for 12 or 13 or 14 hours because of training and all the different side jobs that I'm doing. And I do get really all the days that I'm not doing anything, especially with the level of income that I have been okay with making over the years, and getting by on, like, you do feel a bit inferior at times. But like, as long as I'm getting the bills paid, she doesn't care. And like, it's not an issue.
Right.
But like, it does make you really often insecure. And like, I get doses of it during the summer when she's home. But now obviously we've been forced back into it because of the stay at home stuff here. But like, it is, because like, even like right now, like what I'm doing today versus what she's doing, like she's outside right now as we speak, like putting a roof on the little porch that we have. Like, and that's her idea of a lazy Saturday. Like, because she has to stay in motion. And like, I'm like, well, I'm gonna sleep in. I'm going to drink a bunch of coffee. I'm going to go for a run, and I'm going to talk to Kate for however long we need to talk for. And then after that, I will probably continue enjoying day drinking or something, and just enjoy my Saturday right now, because that's what we all need to be doing. And
while we've been on the phone, Adam's been cooking me food so I can just heat it up so I don't have to feel exhausted by making food. And I feel the same way you do. Like, I'm sitting inside in the room talking to you, and he's like, I'm getting all this stuff ready for you on like his one day off. And I'm like, oh, it's just how you feel sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I generally, actually, because most of the time I'm home first, I do most of the cooking and the dish cleaning and everything else. It's when she can't find the energy to do it that I'm like, really? Like, you can't pick up your dishes off the freaking coffee table. Like, you're just gonna let them pile up for days at a time? Like, really? So like, I get testy about some of that stuff, which is hilarious. But
no, I know what you mean. I just tell Adam, like, if you want me to do something today, like, name it in the beginning of the day, and at some point I'll get it done. That will be my one goal for the day. Just like, so we don't, if something bothers you, tell me now, and I'll try and fix it by the end of the day.
Yeah, our thing is the grass, because like I do the grass cutting and stuff, and there'll be days where I'm tired. Either I've had a hard training day or there's stuff going on, and it ends up by the wayside, and it like aggravates her. And I'm like, really? Like, I know it's important, but like, we waited 2 extra days to have the grass cut, and this is what you're upset about. Like, you're like, I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. The grass in the front yard's overgrown, but like, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
And if it was bothering you that bad, you should have just told me. Like,
but like, yeah, so that's the deal like he and I made. Plus I have if I'm in pain, I wear purple, so he already knows like I'm in a bad mood if I'm in purple, and like I'm already upset, and I'm not going to be a rational person today probably. So that can also be for prednisone purple. Like, I like purple lately, and it just ahead of time warns him, like, I'm either like way out there today, or I have a ton of stuff to do that I normally wouldn't have to do, or just like bear with me in these moments, So we have that like unspoken thing.
Should we get you like one of those purple skin suit things that the kids wear or whatever? Like the morph suits, I think they're called. And you just like come out of your room in those, like, just because it's like the absurdity of the situation. Like,
right.
Like, this is what I feel like right now. So just deal with it. This isn't just like me wearing some purple socks today. Like, this is where I'm at. Don't mess with me. Right. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Like, just make me food and just be present. I will talk to you if I need you.
That's like the Vasculitis shirt for 2017 when we were in Chicago was purple. Oh, I was so happy. I have to tell you. I wear that shirt all the freaking time.
Yeah, I had it on one day this week. Well, it's like super soft too.
Right.
So that's why I love it.
And the time that you're thinking of that comment being made about us being alive, like, and some of us dying faster than others, was at the pool area one night, our first night there in 2017. And it was like a bunch of us, one that's no longer with us, but there were a bunch of us there.
Yeah, I was pretty sure. Like, I'm learning to not trust my memory more and more, and especially
no, but that was right. Night. You were right by that statement.
Yeah, I just remember like somebody saying that, because like I was like really, really nervous, in like a weird way of going there, because like I had been like working with Ed and Joyce a bunch and behind the scenes and kind of trying to get all that stuff like kicked off and done, like all the victory over vasculitis stuff from like 2016, and like I was like fairly secure in like my messaging, but like I hadn't been around other patients. I didn't, I knew roughly that it was like a lot of people that had kind of like bought into the message, but like I'd also heard some murmurs from like Ed and Joyce that like there was some people that were kind of not really on board with what I was, saying and doing and trying to accomplish. And so like I was like a little, as somebody that's doesn't normally struggle to talk to people, I was like fairly insecure about all of it. And like to like cut loose like we did out of out of the pool that night, I think was very, very cathartic for me, because that's like more of my environment anyway. It's like hanging out and screwing off and being mischievous and doing things I'm not supposed to be doing. And so then like, and not knowing that other patients were like that too. I thought I was the only one that was like getting drunk on chemotherapy, like like not smart at all. And I don't recommend doing it, but I did it numerous times. So like, it's, I was like kind of been on eggshells. And I do remember after that, like kind of first night of like that light bulb going off, I'm like, oh, these people are like me. Like, these are my people. And like, just kind of being able to like relax from then on, because it was tough for me. I don't know what your first symposium was like. I mean, I know one time you ended up at the hospital.
Yes, that was my first symposium. I met Suzanne.
Oh, that was your
Megan.
first? Okay.
Yeah, I met Suzanne and Megan there in 2008. It was at Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Rochester, Minnesota. So we flew from Minneapolis, which is where this past year's one was, but then we had to take flights to Rochester from there. So that's when I first met them. I fainted and ended up going out in an ambulance, and I didn't have any parents there. So Dr. Merkel was my doctor at the time, and he jumped in the ambulance with me and went to the hospital. And I was like, this is so mortifying. I was like so embarrassed. When I came back, I was like overly nice, because I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it made me so insecure, but everyone else like related to it a bit from their own sickness problems because of what they'd been through. So I met a lot of like, that's why I have such deep relationships with some of them, and over time it just, like you really start to learn about all these other people that like really get where you're coming from. And it's shocking to know like I'm not alone when like we felt that way for so long. I don't know that makes sense, but
no, it does, because like you're also used to those things kind of like mortifying and scarring people and kind of pushing them away, but we're like, yeah, no, that's just a Tuesday. Like it's just a Tuesday. It's just like a regular Tuesday, like somebody fainted. And like most of us have been through that sort of, I mean, obviously not, because everybody's stuff is so different, but like most of us have had those moments, and like you don't get to pick when they are. And then like we know for like, especially you, like traveling's really, really hard on your body. And so like in retrospect, it's not shocking that happened. And like with where you're at, probably with your health, it's like, that's just, it was bound to happen. But like we're used to that, like freaking everybody else out around you. And like, I'm sure most people were just like, you'll be fine. Like we're kind of like to the point where like the level of severity of like what it takes to move the needle with us is like, that's all it was. Like you just fainted. Like you just went to the hospital. You'll be okay. Yeah. Like
exactly.
Like,
I was
dust
back
yourself
the next
off.
Day, like, hey, what's going on? And I was like so embarrassed. It was, and
you're like, well, you were only in the hospital for a day, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
Like that's where our like level of stuff is at.
I was actually there for 3 hours because Merkel went back there and he's like, I'm not a doctor, I don't have rights, but I can tell you what to do. And they did it, and then I was released, and then I had to get checked on later that night. Like they called the room to make sure I was okay, and someone came and stayed with me in my room, who used to work for the VF but doesn't anymore, just to make sure that I was okay that night. So like I was back out, but I was like, with the methylprednisone they gave me, I was like wired, so the poor woman didn't sleep all night. But
yeah, so because like I know I've had some of those things, like because a couple of mine have come with like heart scares, like where I've had things that I thought were going on with my heart because of treatments or whatever, and like I've spent an afternoon or an evening or whatever in the hospital with either heart attack like symptoms or like major chest pains or like faint heart arrhythmia issues and all that stuff. And like, I'll just like be like, hey guys, I'm in the ER. Like, and then like, if you're there for like a day or so, you're like, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, I'm fine. I'll be back to normal. Most people are like, do you need some time? Like, I remember, Doug Wetzel, who's got a son that's, got what we have. They live in Charlotte, and I went and met them for the first time like a day after having been in the ER, and that came up, and it was like him and his family and my parents were with me, and they like had us over to their house because they live about 30 minutes or 40 minutes from my parents. So we drove up, had dinner with them, and we were talking about stuff, and I joked or mentioned something about being in the ER the day before, and they're like, and you're here? I'm like, yeah, why would I not be? Like, I'm fine. Like, they couldn't find anything wrong. I mean, like, yes, stuff still feels weird, but like, I'm fine. Like, I'm not going to die. I'll be okay. And it's just like, because they were very early also too in their son's diagnosis. So like, it was just like the type thing where I was just like, they were like, you could tell that they were like, are you sure? Like, why did you still come? It's like, because I'm fine. Like, I'll be okay. Like, if I was really bad, they would have kept me. Like, if there was actually something wrong, they're like, well, what was it? I was like, well, they don't know. Like, but I'll be fine. I ran today. I was okay. So like, it'll work itself out.
Well, that's just something when we were first diagnosed at our times, there was a lot of stuff they didn't always know. So we were like comfortable with them being like, well, we're not really sure what this is, but we're going to watch it. And I just grew to trust that. So like, if I got released from the ER and they're like, we're going to watch it, we're not totally sure, we're going to look into it, but like, you should be all right, I would leave, because I just got used to them being like, we're not sure yet, we're going to figure it out. It was like a normal thing to hear from them at the time.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of where, to kind of bring this up to what's going on right now, I think that frustrates me and probably you and a lot of other patients is like, we're looking around at the world that kind of refuses to deal with uncertainty. They're like, well, how many weeks are we going to have to be like this? It's like, well, we don't know. And you know what? Like, that's okay. Like, it's okay not knowing. Like, and I think people refusing to press the pause button or trying to like skirt by and not really close or not really do things like that. Like, I get really upset at that because I'm like, listen, like, I had to take a pause when nobody else in the world was taking a pause. Like, nobody else in my world was taking a pause. Like, it was just me. And like you were saying just a minute ago, is like, you have to get comfortable with not knowing how long this is going to be or what's going on right now. Like, but this is what you need to watch out for. This is what you need to be like, because like when you leave the ER, like if whatever's happened, like, or you've left your doctor's office, they'll be like, you need to watch out for this, this, and this, and they'll give you things like if this gets worse or if this doesn't improve, like they'll tell you those things. And then you just kind of gotta ride out life, like kind of keeping an eye out for those things. But like, we've learned that kind of like it just, especially where we're at now, like it's not going to stop us or slow us down. It's just going to be something extra that we have to pay attention to. And we're used to that uncertainty around these situations and seeing everybody lose their mind right now over like just taking a pause for a couple of weeks. It's like my life was on hold for years. Like, guys, we could get through this. This is not a big deal. Like, even if it's 8 weeks and everybody just needs to take a pause, like if everybody takes a pause together, we can get through this. We can do this. But like, people like kind of refusing to do it just really, really upsets me, because it's just like, this isn't that hard. And I think it's one thing that I think that we as patients right now can help. Because like, I know I've been talking to my coworkers when I was still working that they were really unsure about all this and stuff. And it's like, I realized like, hey, like I've got some experience with this. I can actually be of help to like the regular person now that's like all of a sudden their life's kind of upended because of this, whether they've lost their job, whether they're, I've even been talking to people that have like been too proud to file for unemployment right now because their jobs have shut down, and they've told them like, hey, we're closing our doors so you can go file for unemployment right now, because they've pushed through those bills in Congress or whatever. It's like, this is there for protection. And there's people that are like too proud to do that. And they're like, well, we're going to end up out of money. And I was like, well, like, there's this thing, like, stop being so proud. Like, that's what safety net's for. That's what family's for. That's what these things are there for, is for these times like that. Stop being, so, proud and so weird about all this. Like, we can all get through this. There's some things that are going to help us. And it's just like, it really gets under my skin. I don't know about you, but it drives me nuts that people like kind of refuse to like slow down at all.
I think that people live so much by routine. Like, we unfortunately learned that we don't always get to keep a routine, and we had to sort of let some of that go sometimes at points in our life. And it's really hard for people to let go of what they do every day and how they live. But there's, I just keep requesting cooperation and trying to make it a positive thing. There's so many people that are working so hard, like on the front lines, like these doctors, nurses, medical workers, and then the essential workers, like the people still keeping us have electricity and water and sanitation services. And I mean, there's just, people are still out there because they have to be. And so we just ask others to respect that. Just stay home if you don't have to be, so you're not giving it to more people. If you're traveling from, like in Massachusetts right now, if you're traveling from another state, they are urging you to self-quarantine for 14 days. But that's in my state, and everywhere's different right now. So like, it's hard when I've been telling people for a bit to be really cautious, and some of them haven't necessarily heeded the advice, and I took some of it super personal. But it's not really about me. I just want everyone to be safe, because I don't want people to have to live in uncertainty forever, because it is a scary thing. It's something we've gotten used to, but I just want these, I don't know. I can't put it into words right now.
Yeah, there's just a lot of frustration with me, and I know it's me kind of like lashing out, because like, people haven't been through what we've been through, nor do I think people really should, because like, obviously our goal with everything that we do for raising awareness and raising funds is to develop things so that people don't have to go through what we have to go through. Even the support networks that we've set up, and the mentoring of young patients, or other, not even young patients, other patients of all ages, like, is so that people don't have to suffer like we did or go through what we did. And a lot of times that brings meaning. And I don't know if it's me lashing out or me just being angry that people can't like kind of just wake up, because I think, and this is just where my probably hippie ass brain goes, but it's just like, why can't we all just like wake up and realize that, like, and it's kind of like what I posted about yesterday that you sent me the message about. It's like, we're all like talking monkeys that are incredibly fragile on a tiny little rock hurling through outer space. Like, an asteroid, a rock could fall from the sky and kill us all tomorrow. Like it really could. And so like, when you have that sort of scope and magnitude of like what all is going on, and it's just like, guys, this isn't that big a deal. But I realize, and I need to realize this, like, people haven't had that hard thing happen in their life where they do kind of have to take stock of it. They've just been kind of plowing through, and this outbreak right now, and this pandemic is that wake up call for a lot of people. And it's like, in some ways, I'm expecting people to respond right away, when it took me like years, like absolute years. But like, part of me is just like so frustrated, like, why don't you see it? But like, it's because I'm so far down the road, and I'm like, why don't you see the path? and you forget the mountains that you climbed over to get there. But
right, like
it certainly
mine
drives me
was 20
nuts.
years ago. So I think about that. Like, where was I? Like, different patients I've spoken to, where was I like at 4 years into being sick? Like, where was I mentally at? And I've been like looking back, and I'm like, I have totally been what they've been through, but they haven't lived like through certain things that I've lived through. And so they don't have the full grasp that I have of things sometimes. And I just have to remind myself, like, when I was in their shoes, I was like in a dark place and I was scared all the time. And like, like, I don't know how to get people to stay home. Like, some of them are people that aren't staying home in their own families. And there's nothing that we can do about that, like, I don't know. Don't put this part online.
No, well, that's the thing is like, it's real. Like our frustrations with all of it are real, but a lot of it is because of our understanding of everything. And people don't get that. People that have never experienced any sort of health problems, people like Adam, people like Rihanna, at least our significant others, like, understand like Rihanna doesn't screw around. Like, even when she goes to the grocery store, the first thing she comes home and does is like sanitizes everything and takes all of her clothes off and gets in the shower and washes everything. Like, because she's not screwing around. Like, she obviously understands the danger of me getting sick, and it's something that she worries about, right? Like, I even just like drove her car somewhere the other day so I wouldn't have to get gas, and she was like, "Here's the Lysol, clean everything in my car before you drive it." And it was just like, I was like, I was just driving somewhere to run, but like, she was even going like a step further than I would have even thought to go. She's like, I might have touched something in there that hadn't been cleaned. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's like, I guess we're surrounded by so many people that are conscious about all of this. And when people don't see the stuff happening right in front of them, I think it's hard for them to wrap their head around, which I think is maddening, because I think we do have such a better understanding of everything. And we understand the constraints of the medical system and what can happen when it's overburdened. And, for me, all it took was like seeing what's really happening in these other countries and these other places that have been burdened by it. It's like, this is real. Like, we need to pay attention to this. Like, we need to be like preventive and like preemptive and like the way that we treat and handle this. And everybody else is just kind of like, well, it's, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And until, it's right in front of people and really affecting them, they don't really want to stop and listen.
But every time that we're saying stop and listen, and every time we're saying wash your hands, and every time we're saying be safe, we're basically saying I love you, and we're just trying to help.
Yeah, and I think that's where, like, it would be helpful for us to think about like where we were at like week 2 of being diagnosed. Like,
right.
we didn't understand any of this, and it's like you're all of a sudden being forced, and it's like I should have more compassion right now, but I'm like just frustrated and angry. And I think part of it's because I'm scared that somebody's going to get me sick because people are stupid and not abiding by things. Like,
right.
I was at the track yesterday, and I saw a personal trainer that had like 13 people in a group doing a boot camp thing. They're all sharing mats and towels and little weights and stuff. And I'm like, are you out of your mind right now? The governor of this state has instituted a stay at home. They've already been talking for weeks about groups larger than 10. You got 13 people out here and y'all are sharing sweaty stuff. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're supposedly somebody that's educated, like as a quote unquote fitness trainer, whatever thing that she may or may not have probably printed offline. But like, it's just like this, like the arrogance and the stupidity of that, like just boils my skin. But like, I have to remember, it's like, this person's probably never had to deal with something this infectious. This person's never had to learn and stop and smell the roses. So it is like my gut reaction. And this is like one thing, honestly, I've been trying to work on myself. It's like kind of the next step in my personal evolution. I was like, when I have a knee-jerk reaction to something and it's really harsh or extreme, I probably need to look further into that. Like,
what
if I
do now, I hit pause. Why am I thinking that? That's what I go do now. When I immediately get angry, I'm like, why am I angry? What is the root? Like, I have to care if I'm upset about it. It has to mean something to me because I care about patients everywhere and I care about humans everywhere, and I just want people to be safe. And I don't want us to keep losing tons of people in this country, and it's heartbreaking. And so for me, it comes from like when I have the knee jerk anger, like why am I getting so upset? And it's because I care. It's because I don't want people to be in that situation, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's my frustration with it is like we understand the dire consequences of this and we see people kind of ignoring it. And that's why we probably jump to that conclusion. It's like, hey, we care about everybody. We don't want people to have to suffer through this. We don't want doctors and nurses to be put in these positions. We don't like, and all it requires is you to just like not meet in a big group or exercise by yourself or like not go out for a couple of weeks. And it's like a pretty simple thing to ask. And it's like, we don't just care about you, but we care about all these people's health. And like, like if we're being real, like we don't want you to go through what we've had to go through. And like, we don't want you to maybe take this home and give it to your spouse and they get really sick, or give it to your grandmother or somebody that's immunocompromised in your family that you didn't realize that your actions could affect them. And it's like, when I do get really, really angry and upset like that, is because like I see it as them not caring, but it's just like they don't have the understanding yet. And that's why I've tried to constantly, and then I know you've been doing it too, but like, constantly sharing stuff that's just it's hopefully not political, but it's just like, these are the facts. This is what's going on, and like this is why we're worried. And in the hopes that if it affects one or two people or 10 or 20 or whatever, it's like, that's hopefully somebody that doesn't needlessly suffer right now, because I feel like that's what it is. And it's like, there's going to be people that needlessly suffer. There's going to be people that needlessly die because of other people's like actions that could have been prevented. And I think it's why it boils my blood so much. Like, I'm just like, so, but it is what it is. And we can only, like, I think we've all learned to do this and try to just be real and put our emotions and our thoughts out there about what's going on, and sharing stuff, because that is, I think, one thing that our group of people has done really well. And it's one thing I'm honestly the most proud of, is as far as like what we've all been able to accomplish and stuff. And it's like, I sometimes don't, and you're probably the same way. Like, you're so buried in it, it's hard for you to get the perspective on it. But it's like, I was telling Rihanna last night, like the sheer number of people that have called, text, emailed me, like social media messaged me, DM me or whatever, like in the last week alone, about what to do about their treatments, how they should be handling this, like coming to me and asking me what I thought about what their doctor said. And I was like, what in the world is wrong with these people? like why are they coming to me? But then it's realized it's like, because of the stuff that we've all been able to put out there, and the experiences, like somebody that's 12 years in, or somebody like you that's 20 years in, like the perspective we have on it is very, very different. And you kind of do realize, like, oh man, like these people are coming to me to ask me if this is right, or if what they should do, or is this something that they should contact their doctor about, or like how safe should they be? And it's like, man, like that's a lot of responsibility, and I don't take that lightly at all. Because you and I are not medical doctors, even though we're probably about as close to one as you could possibly be without ever going through the schooling. Because of the sheer amount of time that we've spent marred in like literally in medical jargon, and in hospitals and in doctors' offices. But it's like, and I'm sure I know you have to have been dealing with it too, with patients contacting you, and you don't always get perspective on it until something like this happens.
Right. And like, I've just been saying, like, you really should contact your prescriber. I've been telling them to use like messaging, like, because you know how they have apps, like I have My Chart, Patients Portal. I have a couple different ones for the hospitals I'm in.
Yeah, I've got like
globally.
5 different ones, but yeah.
So
it's like, why can't you all just pick one?
So
pick one.
You can merge some of them with some of them, I think. I think there's one of mine I can't yet. But I've just been going in there and messaging the doctors and asking my own questions for me because they treat me. You know, I can't. So I just like, you should message your doctors and just say, you know, ask what you need to ask about your prescriptions and stuff, because every case is different and we can't say what you should or shouldn't do. We can tell you, you know, like what we're doing, which is like staying, like me, I'm staying in place, and we're not in like isolation, but we're like not required to be in quarantine. I was advised that it would be safer for me not to leave.
Yeah, self-imposed quarantine.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. I was like, I didn't want to get it wrong.
You need some more prednisone right now?
I know, right?
Do you need to go take a hit? Do a little bump of prednisone?
No. My brain is just, I'm exhausted. This is also exhausting, you know?
Yeah, it is. And I do want to thank you for doing this today, because I know you've had a lot going on physically right now and emotionally, and you've been doing a lot as far as these other things, and like the fact that I don't know, like you were the first person I wanted to talk to, because you inspire me constantly more than pretty much anybody that I've ever run into. Like, honestly, like what you've managed to overcome in the last 20 years and still be here and still be fighting, and still be advocating, and also just be my friend is just so important to me. And I wanted you to know that. And I want as many people to hear your story and our other friends' stories, because I feel very lucky for being somebody that's been so unlucky at times. And I know you probably feel the same way as far as being unlucky. You're just like, really, what now?
You're gonna make me cry, Brandon. Don't do it.
No, well, I still like. I'm luckily we're not doing this video right now, because like I definitely have tears in my eyes. But like, it's true. Like I like meeting you and hearing, because like, and I think I've said this before. Like when I started that Victory Over Vasculitis campaign, I had this sort of egotistical attitude about it, of like, I'm going to be this big flag waver that's going to inspire all these people, and this is what I want to do. And I was so egotistical and didn't think about like the reverse side of that, and the friendships that I would make, and the people that would then inspire me, and the things that I constantly hear that people have managed to survive. I'm like, man, I've done nothing. I just am like a stubborn person that likes running fast in a circle on a track, and have been stubborn to try to keep chasing that goal. But like some of the things that people have actually been able to overcome and just still be alive are far more inspiring to me. And you're certainly one of those people.
Brandon.
Are you full on crying right now? Or...
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I hate you right now.
You're crying. I'm like,
I'm not crying. You're crying. No, thank you. No, I'm so proud of you, and I think you are so inspirational for everything. I mean, being a human, doing all that you do for so many communities, not just the vasculitis community, the running community, you know, athletics. You know, there's just so many things that you're a huge part of that are inspiring to so many in all different ways. And my voice is cracking. I'm sorry. And like, I can't put that into words. You're very real, and you have a voice that so many need. And it's not always the easiest place to be, because we always want to try and find the right things to say and be everything to everyone we can. But it's also really hard for us at the same time sometimes to do that. And yeah. You know, you end up leaning on people that, you know, I've been very lucky to be able to lean on the group of people within our community I have been able to. So.
Yeah, and I am too. And that's ultimately what I want people to find. And it's like, if I can help plug people into that community, or,
Right.
I'd be the first step for people. That's, because like, obviously this community is larger and you can't be really, really close with everybody. And finding that balance, and I know you and I've talked about this before, is like finding that balance of being able to live your own life. Cause like some of it's like when you do come to that realization of all these people, I don't want to say relying on you, but looking up to you. It's like, I literally try not to think about it, but I do have these moments where like those realizations set in, or I'll have times where it does get overwhelming, but like I try to make sure that like, I don't spend too much like chunks of my time, like kind of buried in it, and try to do my own things, because it can freak me out. But like the thing that, I mean, honestly, the biggest compliment that you've said, it was just like, it's real. And that's all that I've ever wanted to do with this, is just like, I want this to be real. I want you to have people to have a scope into like what I've gone through, or what we've gone through in these stories that we have, because it is real. It's very real. Like we were talking about the psychosis, like that stuff is real in those that stuff is real in those moments, and the things that we go through are very human and very real, and the emotions that we experience and the ups and the downs, they are very, very real things. And I think when you can hear these stories and hear these things, it creates a sense of community and understanding, because I mean, it does help the disease, but it also helps raise awareness, but ultimately it helps humanizes everybody. So hopefully people can just care more about people and not be so divided, and realize that there are so many things that connect all of us. Getting hung up on things like a political party or race or religion for somebody shouldn't be what affects what you think about somebody, but who they are as a person and what they put out there into the world should ultimately be the thing that affects that, and just people being real. And that's kind of been my whole goal with all of this. So the biggest compliment that you could have ever given me was that. So I'm glad to at least one person it's come off that way. And it sounds like I also need to send you a new book, because it's you've probably butchered that one.
Yes, you do.
Oh, low key, this is just a hilarious side note. My brother's dog actually ate his copy. Like recently. So my brother got a baby pit bull, and it just like destroyed my book. So when I get some more copies, then I'll send you a new one. So
okay. That's so funny.
But thank you for doing this, Kate. I really appreciate you as a person, and want other people to understand how incredible human you are. So, thank you for doing this. It means the world to me.
Thank you for having me. We can all come together. We can do it. I don't know. I want everyone to be safe and be healthy and keep living, and realize no matter what space you're in your, disease, or even in just what we're going through currently, like there's others there for you. Like reach out, like talk to people. It's, we can't give you medical advice though, as we said. So
yeah,
there's other things that, like, if you just want to talk about stuff, but we obviously can't give you medical advice, because my life's been all sorts of wacko, and it's different, and everyone's story within vasculitis is different, even if it's the same disease, even so.
Oh yeah.
But we still like want to be here to help people. And like your confession post last night, I was like crying while reading it, because the other night I was up, well, I think it was like 4 days ago, I was up for like, I think I slept 8 of 80 hours. And so I was up and just like posting all this stuff and listening to all these calls and I was like nonstop trying to get stuff done. And like when you were talking about running, I was talking about like just trying to get like everything out of my brain, because I was like right on the meds back. Like that's when it went up to 40, and I was just like all over the place. And now like I'm in a second stage where I'm like, okay, well, I'm a little bit calmer now,
I wish I could have gotten you in the middle of all of that, because this would have probably gone off the rails. Not that this hasn't been absolutely incredible, but it would have been. The next time it goes up, just reach out and we'll do just I'll just press record and just let you go.
Okay.
And you can just talk for, if it's 4 hours, I don't care. We'll let you go. I might even take a nap in the middle of it. We'll just let you. We'll just let you go.
I told my
but
friend Casey I want to like put Adam up for like husband of the year, because I don't know how he's done this.
Yeah, well, he's obviously an incredible person.
Yes.
And I don't think that you would have found anybody that wasn't, but I'm sure that he deserves that award more than most. So he's got my vote. That's just one vote though. So, but I'll definitely nominate him.
Okay.
Because I sure as heck am not getting it. So.
Well.
But, anyways, I guess we'll go ahead and finish this up here. Do you want to share your Instagram handles or social media stuff in case anybody wants to find you, where they can find you? If not, that's cool. You can stay private.
I would send them to the Kate Tierney. I posted in the Vasculitis Foundation discussion group recently, and it's just me with the keep smiling. My Instagram's more private, but not fully. It just got other pictures that.
Okay. You don't want to share with everybody?
Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. You do what you want. I don't care.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that's where Kate's at if you want to find her or hear more about her stuff and story and stuff. And she's super active in all the vasculitis discussion groups and stuff. But thank you again, Kate. And we'll definitely look forward to talking to you again, because I'm going to hopefully make this a regular thing. And we're going to do at least 10 of them this year. So I may or may not pull you in on some more of them. But we will definitely talk again soon and do this, because we've got, I just now looked at the clock. We've almost been 2 hours now. I thought it was like an hour. So, yeah. So we'll go off the rails and do some more and dig into some more stuff. So thanks again, Kate. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.